Hello and welcome back. I've really got to change my introduction, don't I? Anyway, so I actually received an email a little while ago. What was this? 12th of the 7th, 2023. And it was titled Recession and War Cycles Coming in 2025, 2028. Now, I did want to slate this in. I wasn't sure if I should go into a lot of depth and make it private for paid members or just put it on YouTube. I decided to do a bit more public because this is something that I've been talking about publicly, so I don't see why I should hide it. But on top of that, I also think it's very important. So I'm going to do a little bit of background, then we'll go into the article in a second. So why should you listen to me? Well, look, there's no reason why you should listen to me. However, I have been in the industry for over 10 years. I do have a diploma of financial planning. I have a diploma from Wealth Within. In this diploma, we talk about trend analysis, price analysis, pattern analysis, how to trade shares, etc. I've also got an advanced diploma from Wealth Within. And in this one, we were looking at Elliott Wave, psychology of trading, constructing portfolios, operational trading plans, and also this one here, which is time analysis. So I have exceeded anything that this course could ever teach you about time analysis, and I have gone above and beyond this whole theory. But nonetheless, this is an introduction to time analysis that Wealth Within do teach you, and I did complete this in 2018. So despite completing it in 2018, I've actually been doing time analysis since about 2014, and I wanted to use their course primarily to learn how to do it more in depth, or at least get a jump start on, if there was anything that I was missing. So if you haven't been following my work, I do post in ASEC Traders group. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. It's called Investing, Trading, Macro Fundamentals and Technical Analysis. I have been posting a lot of stuff in there, and it's really just based around this whole time analysis theory. And I've been posting videos, content, etc., talking exactly about what we're going to be talking about today. And that is this upcoming war cycle. And that is also this upcoming market collapse that is going to occur in the next couple of years. Now, I don't believe, or I can't recall exactly if I have posted about the war cycle to this group publicly, but I've definitely spoken about it in the past. And if you follow any of my work, you probably read about it. I'm sure I really have spoken about it. So I won't go into too much time wasting right here, but I'm pretty sure that I've spoken about it. So let's go ahead and move over to this email that I got on the 12th of this month. Now, it was titled Recession and War Cycles Coming in 2025 to 2028. Now, I did jump over to the article and I want to go through it. And it is by the Institute of Cosmological Economics. And this is an institute that I study with. You don't get any certificates or whatever. You buy courses and stuff and you study with them. And you learn about how the financial markets work more on an esoteric level. And this article exactly is by L. David Linsky. And you can go search it. It's not a hidden article or anything like that. But the content that we're going to be going through today is quite esoteric and might seem a little hoo-ha, but I hope that if we, at least do a roundup on the content, you may get some benefit and may be able to prepare for what might be coming down the road, which I have been talking about, and which you may be able to, start to see play out as the world and economy start to get a little bit shaky in the next 2 years, okay? So now, L. David Linsky, he does have a book, and I have got his book. I've read it. It's a pretty wonderful book, and I've learned a lot of gold analysis from him. So speculation in the gold market. I do recommend that if you've got the extra funds to go and buy it. It looks like it's currently discounted for $750. This is US dollars, so maybe just over 1,000 Aussie dollars. But this is going to give you a lot of the insights into why the gold market moves and how it moves and things like that. And I've spoken about some of his stuff on the Facebook group. I haven't gone publicly about what it is because, you do have to sign a non-disclosure agreement when you buy these books. So if you want to go into this sort of study, you can view it here. I haven't shared this publicly with anyone, but this information is here, it's ready, and it's available for you. So let's go back to it. I want to just go through this article. I haven't read it in depth myself because I wanted to sort of save it and then maybe talk about it live with you. But it appears to be it's a two-part series exploring the next iteration of the 84-year war cycle and revolution cycle, which interestingly is centered on July 4th, 2026. Now, July 4th, 2026, that could actually be a very important date for the US, which is why he said interestingly. And 2026 is a time frame, at least 2026 to 2028. You've heard me say this many, many times. This is the time frame that we're watching for the next war cycle. And I've written about it in our back ends. I've showed you how the war cycle plays out. So now you get a front end view of at least someone else, because if you don't trust me, if you don't trust what I do, oh, wrong button. This is someone else's research, pretty much showing you the exact same thing that I'm trying to be showing you, okay? So in conjunction with that event, I want to bring light an additional cycle of potentially great negative significance as well, which occurs within the same time frame between 2025 to 2028. It's not a matter of whether the above event will occur, it is simply a matter of its ultimate severity. And that is correct. When we do a lot of these forecastings, we get things like polarity flips in the market, or something that we thought might happen doesn't exactly happen as we thought it would. You know, it doesn't matter. It's not about if it's going to happen, it's a matter how it's going to happen. At the core of this proposition, and one of my first complete expositions regarding the astronomically based theory of business and economic cycles, was given by Louise McWhirter. And I'm sure you're very familiar with this name. I actually hadn't read this before saying it to you, but I just did a video on her. So she's very known, well, she was very well known for the economics, the astro-based economic theories, okay? Her theory proposed the primary trend of business and economic volumes were due to an 18.6-year cycle of the moon's north node as it circumnavigates around the sky. So as it pretty much moves around the sky. Now you got the lunar, and you got the south node, lunar south node, and lunar north node. They're slightly different to the actual moon's position, okay? So they're different, they're on different angles to the moon. Now, the 18.6-year north node cycle is also the foundation of the 9-year cycle and the 50-year economic cycles. The moon's orbit around the Earth is inclined by 5 degrees, 8 minutes relative to the plane of the Earth's orbit around the sun. The point at which the moon crosses the ecliptic from south to north is called the ascending north or north node. And the point at which the moon crosses the ecliptic from north to south is called the descending or south node, okay? Therefore, the north and south nodes are not physical objects like planets, but mathematical points in the sky. Now, I think that's pretty important. You can go into more detail if you want to read it here. There's also YouTube videos on it. Knowing how the north and south node, operate, it doesn't really matter. What's important is actually knowing the time factor, okay? McWhirter's premise states that as the north node travels around the zodiac, there is extremely high correlation between the position of the north node and the business economic cycle. Below is a graphic of McWhirter's theory of the stock market forecasting. And if you watch my last video, you've already come across this, okay? Okay, well, it looks like he's going to give you stuff that I was going to keep private, but here it is. A more granular breakdown of the north node's position relative to the business cycle of each zodiac sign is below. Aquarius is often the extreme low of the business cycle, which we see here. Pisces, Aquarius, right here, so the business low. And then we go Leo, extreme high of the business cycle, which we have seen in the past. I've talked about that. And if you break down other ones, Gemini, business activity continues to fall. Taurus, business activity reaches new levels, and so forth. And you just see how it goes around the cycle of the north node, okay? Some other related works worth noting about astronomically related events and cycles. Not reading that properly, sorry. Samuel Benner, which you probably know for those who have looked at his cycle. W.D. Gann's Financial Timetable, J.M. Funk, David William, and some of these other guys. Yes, you can buy the books on this website. Mainstream academia needs to give greater consideration to the potential underlying astronomical causes of all cycles. Statistically, they offer the highest level of correlation and accuracy, and that is why I use them. And well, sometimes I don't tell you how they're used. I show you the outcome of what they're used, okay? How they occur. So floods, famine, earthquakes, plus other significant geophysical related and tectonic events can be explained and predicted with regularity and good precision by the movement and alignments of planets. Now, if you go into my back end, and if you look at any of the videos where I've talked about some of the forecasts in the back end, I have done a lot of like weather related events where we're going to get a lot of more significant weather-related events, such as the earthquakes, tsunamis, etc., in a particular year than other years, and that's because of this repeating phenomenon, okay? Meteorologists would be better equipped to predict months or years in advance when and where some types of weather systems would occur and whether certain parts of this year would be unreasonably hot or dry, wet or cold or wet, if they took the time to study planetary phenomena and how they correlated highly to weather-related events, okay? Historically, some of the worst and most widespread economic events occur when the North Node is in the areas of the sky or known around Pisces and Aquarius. This time frame represents the very bottom of the business and finance cycle and offers very high correlation to economic recessions and depressions. The 18.6-year cycle is also the underlying cause of the 18 to 19 real estate cycle. Yes, it is. And I've spoken about this many times. 18.6-year cycle, whilst I've never directly told you in the past, it is based on the 18.6-year lunar cycle. Yes, the lunar cycle meaning the moon, okay? More granular timing of the beginning and end of various economic cycles are accomplished by study of the aspects of angular between various planets and their placements in the sky. McWhirter states that secondary forces can either increase or decrease the economic impact of the node by 20%, plus or minus, okay? It seems like it's going on a lot right now. If you're not bored, please continue along. I'm keenly aware of the stigma and derision, I don't know, is that derision? Anything astronomically based recedes from the general public and academia as it relates to financial markets or any type of mass human event, but I've tried to prove it to you over and over again. I too once held those beliefs with a high degree of derision. I still don't know that word. However, after repeatedly witnessing some highly skilled market traders utilizing astronomical phenomenon to make market projections with near pinpoint accuracy, I had to investigate these astronomically based methods myself. And I don't know if I've been any influence on you, the listener right now, but I too use these and I tell you when the markets are going to change trend, generally well in advance, and you see me put out videos on the day that the market tanks or on the day that the market rallies, and that's based on this exact theory. Suffice to say, it's opened a new realm of perception and knowledge which some consider to be the underlying cause of all market movement and collective human behavior. Yes, I try to tell you that over and over again. All things repeat in cycles, and these repeating economic cycles must be based upon and driven by something scientifically based, for they cannot exist out of thin air with absolutely no scientific foundation. Astronomy is the study of celestial objects and is an accepted scientific study. Simply stated, once you know what planetary pattern causes what type of events, when those pattern repeats, and what you can expect from the repeating pattern, very high correlations cannot be ignored. Those that have studied astronomical phenomenon in this regard know it is to be true, and that is something that I don't want to keep harping, but you just got to see it for your own eyes. Astronomy and how it relates to mass, human psychology, and earthly events is as serious as science as any other field of study. There is an abundance of university studies that bear this out and provide explanations as to how this can occur, but this is not the purpose of this article. Following is a review of the past 10 North Node cycles spanning 167 years as they pass through Pisces and Aquarius. Each of these 10 cycles correlates to a strong economic recession and significant drop in the financial markets. In addition to a very brief comment for each event, I have included glyphs of an astronomical wheel from the, can't say that word, Sepharial program called Astrolog to illustrate a pictorial reference of the zodiac position and the North Node. So this here is the North Node, just a little symbol right here, and these are the glyphs of the zodiac, okay? So this price chart below illustrates the effects of financial markets when the moon's North Node traverses through those parts of the sky known as Pisces and Aquarius. And we see this market tank here. The North Node was mid-Pisces, section 12, at the top in 2007 and towards the end of Aquarius, as illustrated below on March 6th of 2009, when the financial markets hit bottom. This bottom represented a 54.5% drop from the 2007 high. At the October 1987 crash bottom, the North Node was about to ingress, or enter, so ingress is enter, Pisces. This produced a 41% drop in 2 months. Again, here. Then we go on to the next one. That chart was up here, sorry. The May 1917 bottom occurred when the North Node was in Pisces, which represented a 37% drop. Again, we went through this in prior examples and prior videos. North Node just left Aquarius in 1953 and entered Capricorn. Notice how the market made a significant bottom, then shot up just as the North Node left Aquarius in September 1953. this one here. The cycle produced a modest 14% drop in about 9 months. It doesn't let me go higher. Okay. The July 1932 bottom represented about a 90% drop in the, when the North Node was in Pisces. A planetary cycle of about 34 years later brought in the 1966 high, which lasted about 17 years. It was 34 years later again that brought in the 2000 market high. When the markets closed for over 4 months, starting in 1940, the North Node was in Pisces. Again, you see the trend. The North Node just entered Aquarius in 1986 when the bottom occurred. This represented a 41% drop from the high 3 years prior. Right here. The 1878 bottom was a 38% drop. The North Node was in Pisces. We're looking for the year 1878. 1878. I believe that would be about here. The 1859 bottom represented about a 62% drop from the 1853 high as the North Node entered Aquarius. We're looking for 1859, just remember. 1859 just in here. The last North Node cycle covered is the 1842 bottom, which represents about a 74% drop from the 1836 high. And this bottom, the North Node was in Capricorn for some monthly market data of unknown origin. It suggests that the bottom occurred in 1842 to 1843. That was in here. Based on the above chart, which covers an entire century, one can easily see the repetition and the time relationships between the 1842 bottom and the 1859 bottom, 1878 bottom, and the 1896 bottom. You will also see these bottoms form the primary and most severe market lows during each 18.6-year cycle, give or take, iterations of the North Node entering Pisces and Aquarius. The North Node will enter Pisces again in January 2025, right after the 2024 presidential election, in Aquarius, July of 2026, and Capricorn of March 2028. Now, again, I don't know when exactly I spoke about it. Let's take a look. I can't search, what a shame. But this is something that we have been tracking, and we're suggesting that if Donald Trump comes into office again, then he's going to be hailed as both the best and also worst president of all time. And that is primarily because he's going to get in just as the boom is taking off, and he's going to suffer one of the most worst economic crashes that he would at least see. There we go. Did this on May 19th. And again, I've talked about these themes like hundreds of times. We've been around these groups, we've been sending emails, things like that. It's just the same thing, just over and over again. Just try to give you a different way of looking at it. He'll be hailed as the best president of all time. Trump 2024. That is it. That is what we're talking about, because he's going to be in right before the market peaks out. Okay. So what have we got here? Below is a composite chart of the Quick Trade Plus by blah, 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 comprising of 7 complete cycles of the North Node from 1885 to present, relating to the prices of the Dow Jones. Because the North Node travels through the sky in a clockwise fashion, the graph below must be read from right to left. So starting in Aries and going around to Aries. In doing so, we notice that the lowest average price relative to the position of the North Node occurs when the North Node is in Pisces, blue, just as we have documented above. Based upon the historical movement of the North Node, we can expect an economic downturn of some degree to occur between January 2025 and March 2028. Again, you just go watch my last videos. Once the North Node enters Capricorn in March 2028, the business cycle should start slowly to reverse, if not earlier. Keep in mind, financial markets are separate from, but integrated into the economic business cycle from which the North Node specifically reflects, okay? Don't know what's happened to my reading today. As an example, and regarding the Great Depression, the financial market started to recover at the July 1932 bottom, yet the economic depression of the population continued for the next decade until World War II, which is what pulled the United States out of the economic depression. 1942 was also the beginning of the next 45-year planetary market cycle, which generally starts a significant bull market, as it does in this case as well. Significant 45-year cycle bottom should occur in 2032. Okay? This is it. Boom, boom, boom. You're getting some time forecasting right here, guys. My next article will provide an analysis of the 84-year war cycle. I'll just go into this myself. The 84-year war cycle is due to expire, or due to come, to fruition, due to a cycle of rollover, in July 2026. And this is a time when the US is most likely to enter war with another country than not. So we need to continue to watch this World War III situation fire up. It doesn't have to be World War III, actually. It doesn't have to be, it can be just a major conflict involving the US. It is only a war based on the 84-year cycle if it directly involves the US. Okay, the US started the war, or the US was attacked, okay? If US is pulled into the war, that's generally not the case. It generally doesn't have the same fruition in this cycle. US has to be directly involved some way or another. I'll wait to see what he comes out with in his next post. I do think there's probably going to be something similar to what I've been talking about already. But just keep in mind that this time frame is very, very important, okay? It's both important financially, economically, your financial safety, your health safety, your family safety, etc. We're not in the same times as we were in the past. Things are going to be changing very rapidly through 2025 to 2028. The market, which if you go back to prior videos, just want to say it again, the market is going to go higher. Property prices are going to go higher, but they will crash. They're not going to crash yet. They will crash in this time frame. And what happens with the war will depend on how severe this crash is going to be, okay? Because wars can have two impacts on the market cycle. First of all, a lot of spending is done during wars, which can boost up economies. A lot of spending from governments can boost up economies, can make economies stronger than what we believe. Manufacturing starts to explode. War weapons are manufactured. A lot of jobs, a lot of people are hired for things. So it might not be the downturn that we're expecting in one way or another, where everything is going to crash. Key industries will survive and they will prosper, okay? See what I'm trying to get at? However, for you personally, this could be a very disastrous time. And I do recommend that you have your financial books in order, possibly some land. I'm not trying to scare you, just giving you some forewarning about what's occurred in the past, because it may roll into the future, okay? As he likes to say, it's not a matter of whether the events will occur, it's simply a matter of the severity of these events. And these time frames are coming up. We need to watch them, we need to prepare for them, we need to just now stay vigilant. I will continue to go on about this over and over again. I will prove to be accurate. Everyone who talks about this will prove to be accurate. The difference between those who just repeat and those who actually understand this content will be who you should be focusing on. Those who are repeating this content, those who have just studied it for 6 months, trying to make bold forecasts, be wary of them because they will lead you in a possible incorrect direction. I hope that I do help you and lead you in the right direction. I know this is not based on Bitcoin. I know that this video is not based on anything significant that is related to this channel. But I do hope that this video will prove to be beneficial and will now give you greater clarity into what I've been saying. You can go here, go to this link and just read it yourself when part 2 comes out. Go to this website, start reading all the material from this website, buy the books, buy the forecasting stuff. There's a lot of people here that do a lot of Gann work, okay, a lot of cycle work. I'm not here to, I guess, make you buy a book that you might not be interested in, not at all. I'm just trying to give you a new venue of where you can study. A lot of these books I have bought, they're super expensive. There's some bloody expensive courses in here. You're talking $5,000 courses, $10,000 courses. So they're only if you really need them, okay? But if there's something that you're interested in, go ahead and buy it. Take a read. You might learn something new. With that said, I'll talk to you soon.